B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Nasliach. We shall continue Be'ezrat Hashem our Zera Shimshon class. Parashat Bechukotai. Says the Zera Shimshon Parashat Bechukotai, the last parashat in Sefer Vayikra. We're going to learn Derush Gimel Be'ezrat Hashem. He says the following: Pasukim. He wants to analyze the beginning verses of the parashas. You know that just as a backdrop, this week's parasha is famous and infamous for many things. The main idea of this week's parasha is Hashem is giving you the balance of possibilities, possible outcomes that a human being shall realize based on how he uses or misuses his free will. Hashem says very clearly, right, that this week's parasha is a source for a lot of major fundamental principles in Jewish philosophy and theology. One of those things is the fact that free will exists. Free will is a real thing, that human beings have the right to choose morality over immorality, the right to choose the good over the bad, and that there are consequences for the person's actions, right? If the person does good, he shall see good. If he does bad, he shall see bad. Now again, there are those famous deep questions that need to be addressed. You know, how does a tzaddik see bad in his life? How does a rasha see good in his life? Right? Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem this question famously, as the Gemara explains. But that's not the topic today. Today we're just going to go based on the simple, basic, fundamental principle. I guess, again, we're talking about in the long run. In the long run, right? If you do good in this world, you will see good in the long run. In Olam Haba, eternally, over the long haul, it will be good for you, right? And vice versa for the opposite. Now, that's what the parasha speaks about. Hashem says very simply, if you follow me, you will get a reward in this world. And Chachamim explain in the next world as well. And if you don't follow me, you will see many, many, many bad, terrible, lo aleinu, horrible curses that shall befall upon the people if they do not follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the main premise of the parasha. And the Zera Shimshon wants to analyze some of the words and some of the usage, the way it's presented. He says, Pesukim im bechukotai telechu, v'im bechukotai tim'asu. When Hashem presents in the Torah the first part of the equation, which is, if you do good, you shall see good. The way he says it is, if you walk in my chukot. Chukotai means my chukot. A chok is a type of law. In the Torah, we have different names for different laws. There's chukim, which are laws that are not understandable to our simple human logic. And there are mishpatim, which are simple, understandable, common sense laws, such as do not kill, do not steal, honor your parents, things like that. The chukim, an example would be, do not eat pig. The laws of purity and impurity, all the things that seem hard for us to understand on a basic level, those are chukim. So when Hashem introduces that, He says, if you walk in my chukim, you will get good, you'll get berachot. But then the other side of the equation, when He introduces that part of the equation, which is the negative side, it says, "V'im bechukotai tim'asu." If you will hate my chukim. If you will hate my chukim. What does that mean, hate my chukim? It says over here, we have to analyze, ma'u hakefel shel shlosha leshonot bebrachot. Why does the Torah repeat the language in three different ways? By the blessings. What are those three ways? Bechukotai telechu, walk in my chukot. Umishpatai tishmoru, and if you guard, tishmoru, if you guard my mishpatim. We explain what that is, right? This is the common sense laws. And afterwards it says, v'asitem otam, and you will perform them. Right? God says, if you do these three things, you get baracha XYZ. If it's all talking about the same idea, why do you have to repeat it three different ways? And by the curses, lo amar lehefech. It doesn't say the exact words in the opposite. Im bechukotai lo telechu. If you do not walk in my ways, if you do not keep my mishpatim, if you do not guard my mishpatim, I'm sorry, and if you do not perform the law, the mitzvot. It doesn't say there's the negative. It doesn't take the same formula as the berachot and flip it for the negative side. It doesn't say that. It says different words. What are those different words? Umahu. What is it? Tim'asu. Dinakat. What is the purpose of saying it the way it said it, the negative, which is, if you will tim'asu, if you will hate. Tim'as means to be disgusted by something. So God says, if you will be disgusted by my laws, right? And by extension, not do them. But the question is on the wording. Why is it by the Berachot that says, if you will do the laws, and if you will guard them? But by the law, by the curses, it says, if the laws will disgust you. Yes, it's the opposite, but not exactly the opposite, right? If we're trying to see, if the Torah is trying to present a simple, balanced, equation here, then it should be the same wording on both sides, just the negative on the other side. But that's not what it says. It says a different word altogether, disgusted, right? If you wanted to keep it consistent and symmetric, then over here by the blessings, it should have said, if you will love, if you will be not disgusted, I don't know, if the laws will be delicious for you, or something like that, the opposite of that. The point is, it's not exactly symmetric. Why not? Right? Another pasuk that it says over there by the curses is, if you will not listen to me. Right? But it didn't say that by the blessings. It didn't say if you listen to me. It says if you will do them. So again, it's not exactly symmetric, and he wants to figure out what's the purpose the Torah worded it this way. Yesh Lomar, you can answer. Hamotelet al Adam, the obligation that falls upon a person, le'ehova mitzvot, to love the mitzvot, u'lisno et ha'averot, and to hate sins. שמי שאין לו אהבה כשורה בליבו עם המצוות, that because if somebody doesn't have love entrenched in his heart for the mitzvot, אף אם לא יחטא, even if he doesn't sin, עם כל זה לא יהיה לו זריזות המצטרך בקיום מצוות. He won't have the proper alacrity, the proper זריזות that he needs to perform the mitzvot, to do the positive things. And he will not reach the level of nikiyut, of cleanliness, spiritual cleanliness. And on the other side, flip side of the coin, if somebody doesn't have hate entrenched in his heart against sins, it's possible that he will fall to sin. Right? So the point is saying a person is obligated to not just do the mitzvot, but to love the mitzvot, and not just not do the avirot, hate the avirot. You have to have that emotional investment. That's what he says. And that's what will protect a person to keep him in the proper path. Therefore, בקיום המצוות אמר הכתוב, אם בחוקותיי תלכו, דהיינו שיהיה לכם שנאה גמורה עם העבירות. That's why when it says in the Berachot that if you walk in my chukim, it means you have to have a hatred against making sins. And furthermore, and that there has to be a love tied into the person's heart for doing the mitzvot. Not just doing them robotically, but there has to be a love for it. That's why it says in the verse, if you shall guard my mitzvot, tishmoru, the language tishmoru from the word shomer, here simply means to guard, if you will guard my mitzvot. But it can have another meaning as well, that word. What is it? From the language of Yaakov Avinu, when Yaakov heard the dreams of Yosef, and Yaakov said to Yosef, "Oh, you think I'm going to bow down to you?" He said it only externally in order to prevent hatred from developing between Yosef and his brothers of jealousy. However, if you look in the commentaries, when it says his father shamar tadavar, that Yaakov shamar, he guarded the matter. What does it mean he guarded? It says Rashi over there, it means he anticipated. Lishmor also means to anticipate because of love and excitement. So here you could plug in that meaning into the word in our pasuk in our parasha when it says ve'et mitzvotai, mishpatai, my laws, tishmoru. If you will guard my laws, again you can read it as if you will be excited to perform my laws. If you will have an excitement and love and anticipation for them, that's the love that a person needs according to Zera Shimshon. That because of the great love, they will run to do the mitzvot and to chase after them. Then for sure, the end of the verse says, you will do them. Meaning you can only consider a guarantee that you will come to do them if you really loved it. If you really love to do it, and if you're searching and pursuing to do it. Right? I could add to that. Even, let's say a person really wants to do a mitzvah and he loves to do it and he's excited to do it, but for some whatever external reason he was unable to perform the mitzvah, something against his will, that he was unable to do it, God still counts it as you did it. Right? So you see, the main ingredient is to want to do it. That's where everything starts. It's the seed where the plant sprouts from. Even if you didn't end up doing it, since you really wanted to and you tried to, but you couldn't for whatever reason against your will, God counts it as you did it. That's what it says in Masechet Kedushin very famously. God counts it as you did it. Ulhefech, and on the opposite side, Bekelalot, Amar, by the curses it says, Ve'im lo tishme'uli, right? God said in our Parashat, if you will not listen to me, then XYZ curse will happen. Right? What's the explanation of that language? If you will not listen to me, lehov mitzvot. It means if you will not listen to me, to love the mitzvot and to hate the averot. Shezeh garam lachem shevelo ta'asu et kol mitzvot ha'ele. That's what caused you to eventually do the end of that verse, which is not doing the mitzvot. Right? If you don't listen, that means you don't have the love. You're not properly emotionally invested, and that's how you end up sinning. V'adraba, on the opposite, im bechukotai timasu shema'astem haderech hatova. Right? That also explains the language of timasu, being disgusted. That's an emotional thing, right? So you're saying that since you were emotionally invested, improperly invested, which means you didn't love the mitzvot and hate the averot. On the contrary, you maybe loved the averot and you hated the mitzvot. The mitzvot were disgusting to you. That's how you ended up getting to where you are, it says. Haderech hatova hava mitzvot va'af et mishpatai tig'al nafshechem. Right, the end of the verse also says there that even my laws tig'al nafshechem, your souls and yourselves were completely disgusted by them. She'amishpatim hem devarim she'afil. Right, and that's talking about mishpatim over there. That even by mishpatim you're going to be disgusted. And we said mishpatim are laws that are simply understandable, that a normal functioning human being should understand, that he should accept based on simple logic. You don't need anybody to convince you of them, such as do not kill, do not steal, honor your parents, like we said, things like that. But the point is that if you're not properly emotionally invested in Torah, even those mishpatim that should be so simple and obvious to you, you will grow a hatred against them. Right? And that's really what the opposition to Torah thinkers, right, atheists and things like that, that's really what they hold, a lot of them. Again, there's different philosophies out there. I don't recommend you research them, but some positions hold that everything is completely meaningless, everything is completely one big randomness, nothing really matters, and since nothing really matters, it doesn't matter that I should honor my parents. Who says I should? Based on what? Based on the random fact that everything came into being. My parents are random, I'm random. Who cares if I respect them or not? Who cares if I kill somebody else or not? Right? The other position is that, you don't want it's still a good thing not to kill anybody else, because then people won't kill you and then you'll have a good society. But I challenge that and say, okay, so what? Who cares? If in the grand scheme of things nothing really matters according to your understanding, that even society doesn't really matter, so why should that little value that, I shouldn't want to kill other people so they don't kill me, why does that even matter? Because in the objective grand scheme of things, according to that atheistic approach, nothing matters. So that's why they also, that's what the Torah warns here, that if you're not properly emotionally invested, you can reach this extreme level of improper philosophy where you believe that nothing matters, and therefore even mishpatim, simple, basic sociological principles as do not kill, do not steal, honor your parents, even those things become questionable to you. Because there's no limit. Once you open the door, once you open Pandora's box, there's no limit. That's why the Torah gives us structure. The Torah gives us proper structure for us to wrap our minds around the proper concepts, wrap our hearts around the proper beliefs, and to guide us in the ultimate path. It says further over here, שמשפטים הם דברים שאפילו לא נכתבו, ראויים הם להתקיים מדרך הטבע וישוב העולם, כמו שפרש רש"י בפרשת אחרימות, על פסוק את משפטי תעשו ואת חוקותי תשמורו, אף אני אעשה זאת לכם, אסרה אתכם כדי שלא יטיב לכם כלל וכלל. God says, I will hate you if you behave yourself that way and have that improper philosophy, so that you should not benefit at all. והאדם שקללות בתורת כהנים הם מ"ט, ובכי תבוא הם צדיק ח', לפי שבכי תבוא נכנסו בכלל הערבות. So there's a question. In our Parashat Bechukotai, there are 49 scary curses enumerated. There's another place in the Torah, in Sefer Devarim, Parashat Kitavo, where there's another set of curses, scary curses that Moshe Rabbeinu explains to Am Yisrael. And over there, it's double. It's 98 curses. So the question that the Mepharshim asked is why? Why do we have 49 in this week's Parashat and 98 in the repetition of the Torah in Parashat Kitavo? He offers one answer here. And he says, because in Kitavo, that was already right before they entered the land. That was during Moshe's last speech to Am Yisrael. And at that point, they already became a nation where they entered into the status of Arvut. Arvut means they're guarantors for each other, which means every Jew is responsible for the next person next to him. At that point in history, they reached that status. Dainu, which means one person is obligated for the next. What's the role of a guarantor? Guarantor means if somebody borrows money, the lender wants some sort of guarantee that the borrower will be able to pay. So the borrower says, I'll have a guarantor, someone to back me up, a co-signer, so to speak, that will pay you back in the event that I cannot pay you back. So each Jewish person is like a guarantor for the next, that you're responsible to make sure that your fellow Jew is on the right path. And that's why it says 98 curses in Kitavo and 49 here, because here in this week's Parashat was before they reached that level. So each person was individual, worried about himself, responsible for himself. But by that point in history, each person was responsible for himself and at least one other person, double, and that's how you get 98. Right? Because the guarantor ends up suffering if the lender can't pay. Same thing over there. One Jewish person can end up suffering if his fellow Jew next to him is not behaving properly. And with this understanding, we can understand the pasuk. He says from Tehillim, chapter 139:23. It says, "Chakareni el v'da' levavi." Investigate me, God, and know my hearts. In plural, my hearts. God, know my hearts. What does it mean, my hearts? You can settle this, he says, with the previous verse in that same chapter, Tehillim 139, in verse 21 over there it says, Halom misanecha Adonai esne. Don't I hate your haters, God? Right? This is one of the sources where it says people who are fiercely against God, you're supposed to hate them. David HaMelech hated them. It says, don't I hate your haters, God? Shekatav Rabbeinu Yonah, the Rabbeinu Yonah, important commentary shown. He writes in Masechet Berachot, Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph, Al Matnitin, regarding the Mishnah there that says Bechol levavecha, that explains the verses of Kriyat Shema, and it says when you say Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha bechol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'modecha, the translation of the verse is you shall love God Bechol levavecha, with all of your hearts. Again, it's plural. What does it mean, all of your hearts? The Mishnah explains Bishnei Yitzrecha. You have to serve God with two of your hearts, which the heart represents an emotional inclination. And so you have to serve Hashem with both of a person's natural inclinations. The good Yetzer and the bad Yetzer, the good inclination and the evil inclination. Meaning your intrinsic pull to do good, you have to serve God with that, and your intrinsic pull to do bad, you have to even serve God with. How do you do that? Says Rabbi Yonah, to hate the wicked ones, Hainu la'avod habore b'yetzer hara. That's what it means to serve God with your evil inclination. Why? Mishum she'asin'ah, because the faculty of hatred, v'tahrut, and competition, and hatred and competition together, nif'elet, they emanate miyetzer hara, from the yetzer hara faculty of a person's mind. Right? I mean, hate itself, a person only hates anybody because of the yetzer hara. So if you want to use that in service of God rather than going against God, then you use that to hate those who hate God. Then you're using it in a positive way to serve God that way. But love in general is emanates and is sourced in the Yetzer HaTov itself, right? The good inclination, that's where love comes from. V'avkan, the same thing over here, Amar, it says, Kishe'ani soneh et harishayim, when I hate the wicked people, And when I hate sins, ani ovdecha. I am serving you, God, by doing that. Even with my evil inclination, I'm using it to serve you. If so, az da levavi b'shnei betin. That's why in the original verse in Tehillim that we had a question on, which is 139:23, where it says, God, investigate me and know my hearts. It's referring to his two inclinations. The plural hearts is referring to his two inclinations, the good inclination and the evil inclination. Yetzer tov, yetzer hara. That's why it says two bets over there. It means two hearts. Deromez yetzer tov, yetzer hara. And that's how a person is really, his true colors are shown, right? That when he even serves God with his evil inclination, then he is 100% emotionally invested in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the goal. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.